They're the only tree that survives up this high above the snow line, because there could be 2 metres of snow here in winter and it could be -9.
Mike Edmondson has been a guide in the Snowy Mountains for 3 decades. His photos of the snow gums capture their glory in every season.
They create this safe haven, and it's just like a different world, and you feel so safe and protected.
Many of the trees that Mike has photographed are now dead.
For someone that's spent so much of their life here and in this environment, what does it mean to you that it is facing this threat?
To think I skied down those trees that used to be alive and they're no longer there, and I've spent all my life trying to get the best photos I can of all these beautiful snow gums. Yeah, it would be like devastating.
To find the snow gum killer, we're joining a late-night stakeout for a beetle that's eluded scientists for decades.
Yeah, it's 8:30 at night. Why are we doing this in the dark?
Well, actually, we're going to have to be out here for a while longer.
Dr. Matthew Brookhouse leads a small and dedicated team from the Australian National University, which finally discovered the culprit last summer.
We're not going to see them until it's well and truly dark. I can still hear some ravens moving around, and so the insects come out when it's safe for them to do so.
Okay, what's it called?
It's commonly referred to as the eucalyptus ringbarking borer.
You must have to be pretty obsessive to do this sort of work. These are unusual conditions to work in.
I think so. I think knowing that underneath the bark there are rows and rows of larvae feeding on that tree and it's probably going to die, that makes it, have this sense of urgency. And you can see all the sawdust, what we call frass, which is the waste material of the larvae.
Eventually, the adult ringbarker borer beetles emerge.
Yeah, there's one.
Where is it?
Just there. Just a little male.
There it is there.
Oh, you got him?
Yep.
Yeah, so that's a male. You can tell because his antenna are longer than his body. And then Anna records it into this app, which is basically a spreadsheet, but it also records the location that it's at.
The next morning, we meet Matthew's team behind Guthiga Dam for a longer hike, and the scale of what's happening is clear.
As we look up the slope here to the top of the ridgeline, most of those trees are now dead.
And you're left with this sort of ghostly, post-apocalyptic landscape. It's all over.
It's everywhere.
It's devastating.
It's awful. It's absolutely awful.
Across the Australian Alps, from Mount Buller, Hotham and Falls Creek in Victoria to Thredbo in New South Wales, and then up into the ACT, the ringbarker borer is killing the snow gums.
When you come to the mountains here, you don't see anything other than snow gum. One species. And so when you think about this one species being under attack by an insect, then the loss of that one species has immense impact. All of the habitat they provide, all the animals, everything that is in there. If these trees disappear or are dead, every part of that ecosystem, every part of the process is threatened. When these trees die, they're not being succeeded by the next generation of trees. So we are seeing mature trees and young trees dying at an accelerated rate, and then they're not being replaced by others.
Doesn't that tell us that something is amiss in this environment?
There's something out of balance. And that wood-boring insect is a native insect and has probably been up here for thousands, hundreds of thousands of years. Why now do we see the population of that insect just explode to the point that basically everywhere you look in the mountains, you see insect outbreaks and dying trees like this?
3 years ago, the temperature in this area was more than 6 degrees above the long-term average.
We need to think seriously about climate as the big driver.
Some of these snow gums are more than 400 years old. And to save them, Matt needs to go back in time. Using tree ring samples, he's looking for climate clues dating back centuries.
So even something that is of good size is still reasonably young. So this is probably, yes, this dates back to the late 1800s.
The tree ring material is what we need to begin to reconstruct what has happened here. reconstructing how we got to this point.
Many blame the bushfires for the devastation, but the beetles, it turns out, are more deadly.
Fires just burn the outside, the bark falls off, and you're left with these lovely sort of silvery smooth stems. Insects, on the other hand, they gouge out the wood. So what you're left with afterwards is a tree that has multiple horizontal scars on it.
Why can't you use a pesticide because this is such a pristine environment?
At this stage, we don't know exactly what insecticide to deploy. You introduce a systemic insecticide and it kills everything that eats it. What else are we going to kill in the process of saving a tree from some wood borers?
Studying the ringbarker borers may also help. It's possible that beetle sex chemicals could be used to prevent them breeding.
But we need to identify whether that exists in the first place and then move on to synthesising that. And that's some years away.
Do you think we will be able to save the snow gums?
I hope so. I mean, at this point, the trees in front of us, honestly, at this stage, given what we know, there isn't a lot we can do.
It grows on you. Once you come once or twice, most people get a real connection with the Australian Alps and they just want to come back out here. And it's a spiritual sort of connection. We want the trees to outlive us, really. Be a shame if it was, the other way around, to see them go in our generation or even our children's generation.
You know what we need to stop the beetles from mating? Tiny condoms. Just very little. Anyways.
Can I refer to our expert?
Sorry. Thank you.
What we need are bin chickens in the nets. You can help. There's a big citizen science project at hand. Head to saveoursnowgum.org. You can find out how you can contribute.